Extension of Baltimore County Equity Committee. I now call to order our May 16, 2024 meeting. In accordance with Board Policy 8311, the chair of a committee, at their discretion and after consultation with the staff liaison, may convene an in-person committee meeting. Otherwise, all committee meetings will be held electronically. Today's meeting is being held virtually and broadcast through Microsoft Teams. In order to efficiently conduct this meeting, committee members will state their name before speaking. Ms. Seabolt, will you please call the roll of board members to determine the presence of a quorum of the committee?
Yes. Dr. Savoy? Ms. Harvey?
Present.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes. Present.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes, present.
Ms. Delusky?
Present.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seabolt. Will you now call the roll of staff members on the Equity Committee participating in today's meeting?
Ms. Charlie Green?
Present.
And Mr. Handy?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Seabolt. Okay, the first item on the agenda is consideration of the FY 2025 Equity Committee meeting schedule and the FY 2025 Equity Committee meeting with the Equity Council schedule. The proposed meeting dates were provided to the committee members in advance for review. At this time, may I have a motion to approve the FY 2025 Equity Committee meeting schedule?
So moved, Stileski.
Is there a second?
Second, Frempong.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Seabolt, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Okay. Dr. Savoy? Ms. Harvey?
Yes.
Ms. Drummond?
Yes.
Ms. Frempong?
Yes.
Ms. Lichter?
Yes.
Ms. Delusky?
Yes.
Thank you. That's 5 votes in favor.
Thank you, Ms. Seabolt. So the next item on the agenda is the review of the Equity Committee purpose and measures of effectiveness. If you all recall, we were charged by our chair, Ms. Booker Dwyer, to really take a look at how our committees are functioning and what the purpose of the committee is. And I am going to now turn this discussion over to Mr. Handy.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. All right, so in alignment with what you all have been assigned as board members within this committee, I do have a draft document that I want to share with you all and present it for your review and input, and then see if we can come to consensus on this document before we submit it as requested. So next slide, please. And actually, Ms. Seabolt, I will present the document. All right. So hopefully you can see the document on the screen. So this is for our equity committee, starting with the purpose. I'm just going to read it for any one who is observing the meeting, who may not be able to see the visual. States, in support of the goals of Board Policy 0100 Equity, the board has established a standing committee on educational equity to implement this policy and to report quarterly to the board. The Educational Equity Committee will assist the superintendent in the development of strategies to ensure that equitable educational opportunities are being provided to all the students who attend Baltimore County Public Schools. And that verbiage is essentially paraphrased from Policy 0100. Next, we have the measures of effectiveness. 2 items in particular. Number 1, the committee arranged for 2 3-hour workshops for board members that increased their capacity to lead for educational equity through school board governance. And then secondly, the committee recommended revisions to Policy 0100 Equity to create a more goal-oriented and actionable policy. The remainder of the document just lists the board members, staff liaison, meeting dates and times for the committee, and also the meeting dates and times that the committee meets with the Equity Council. So this time, just want to go back to the measures of effectiveness that have been drafted to see if any committee members have any input on what we have so far for measures of effectiveness.
Hi, this is Ms. Stileski.
Hi, Mr. Lusky.
Thank you for putting this together. I know that at the board member, I don't want to call it training, and I don't remember the better word that we used. And then also when we're meeting in various committee meetings, I know that there has been an increase in bringing equity into the equation, so to speak. I don't know how to document that in terms of measures, but I have seen a noticeable increase in sort of where board members have sort of hit a pause and said, okay, can we bring equity into this? Or commenting on something regarding how it was helping equity. So again, I don't know how to use the verbiage to give it a measurement, but I have seen a noticeable increase.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lusky. I'm going to attempt to draft something here for review, and then you all let me know. So the result has been a noticeable increase.
In the use of an equity lens.
Thank you. That Ms. Lichter, thank you.
Yes. I'm asking questions or.
Okay, so I took what Mr. Lusky recommended, and I just added on to that first bullet about workshops. And I think that was what I was recommending. We say workshops, if you all are okay with that language. So if you all want to review what I put there, and Mr. Lusky, I'll ask, does that capture what you were?
Absolutely. And I don't know how other members feel in terms of if they have noticed that, that increase or improvement as well, but it sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And Ms. Harvey, I should have asked before I recognize Mr. Lusky, but I do see some hands from board members. Do I have your approval to facilitate?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. So Ms. Frimpong.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Handy, for putting this together. So I guess two things I would say, and I'm not sure necessarily how to capture this in effectiveness. But one thing I would say is, again, working kind of in conjunction with that Equity Advisory Council, since that particular group is a variety of stakeholders, from students to parents, staff, et cetera. So I don't know if that should be something in there as well, as far as how we're working with them to, make sure that we're hearing those concerns that are being addressed. And this equity committee came out of from a report that had been done when the system was audited. So I don't know if that's also something as well, as far as measures of effectiveness, that we should be making sure that we're continuing to review that report report and seeing some progress or improvement in identified areas. And maybe, it's every year or quarter year, or every year, I guess maybe at minimum, that we're looking at a specific focus area. But I would think that we would want to pull that report in there as well so that we can actually see across the school system how effective things are how effective things are, or what improvements we are or are not making, if that makes sense.
Mhm. All right, so thank you, Ms. Frimpong. So I tried to capture that first bullet. Let me just, as a placeholder, I'll just put that for now. So I don't know if that first bullet captures it. And I'm thinking around anything we can state to be like the measurable outcome, or, a noticeable outcome like we have with the other two bullets. So right now it looks like it's an action statement, but please take a look at that and see if that captures what you're looking for, and then the committee can decide where they want to go with that.
So Mr. Handy, this is Mrs. Harvey.
Yes.
And Board Member Frimpong, please correct me if I'm misunderstanding. I think that because the initial report was so comprehensive, in terms of issues that were facing the system, in terms of equity and inclusion, that specifically naming the report so that we have that to constantly measure progress, was Miss Frimpong's suggestion. Am I wrong, Miss Frimpong?
No, that's correct, because again, we are supposed to be doing the report every year. So even if as a committee, we make sure, we're the people whose voices are saying, make sure this report gets done, make sure this report gets done, so that we're able to, be reviewing that as a system. But yeah, I think it is important that we still capture that we need this report, and it is supposed to be done every year.
Okay, thank you for that. So it's Equity Data Metrics Report, I believe is the name of it. So I guess, so one question, I guess, if I understand how this document is set up, I understand what you're saying, Ms. Frimpong, about ensuring that the report is delivered annually. I guess I need some input on phrasing that. I guess acknowledging that it has not been reported up to this point.
This is Mrs. Harvey. I might simply say something like, in FY 2025, initiate annual equity data metrics report, or
Okay,
implement, or, choose your action word there.
got you. Thank you.
Yeah, I would even say just review, because it should be done. And so we should be looking at that and having an understanding of where we are as a system based on that word.
Okay. All right, so does that capture it if we have the statement? In FY 2025 review annual equity data metrics report. How about that?
So that's for this
Can
outcome.
we? Oh,
Go
I'm
ahead.
sorry, Ms. Frimpong. I was just going to say, can we tweak that to say in FY 2025, begin annual reviews of, so that it doesn't look like we're just doing it in 2025.
Got you.
So I like that. I think that is good. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of, I don't know, maybe speak on the elephant in the room. Are we going to get one for this year, for this school year? So I'm just throwing that out there now. We haven't heard about it, so I don't know what is going to happen if we do or do not have one, or if there is a plan to have something delivered before the end of the school year. But I think what we have then, at least now for this bullet point, is I think it's a good thing to keep us on task with keeping track of this.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Frimpong. I know you did pose a question. So thinking about how you all do initiate reports that you all receive. So I do want to defer to you all a bit on what happens this year. Understanding we do have the recommendation for next year and an annual cadence for that. But I don't know if anyone wants to weigh in on Ms. Frimpong's statement. I know Ms. Lichter is waiting with comment as well. Okay.
Mr. Moody, what was your question again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so Ms. Frimpong was asking if there was going to be a report this year. So we captured a statement about FY25 and going forward. So
no question.
So this is Ms. Harvey. If I wonder if a report, the annual report has not been in the works to date, I am reluctant to think that we would be getting a comprehensive report by the end of the school year. But perhaps we may be able to get some reporting information, and maybe we can discuss as a committee a deadline if we want to see some type of report, or what type of at least cursory or basic information we'd like to see on the work that's been done in the system on equity this past school year. I'll leave that to the board for discussion and consideration.
okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Harvey. All right, Ms. Lichter.
My comment was just, and I keep going back and forth, in the purpose, when you have in the development of strategies, is it really the board? To me, that sounds more like implementation. Are we really developing strategies? Are we monitoring the work? I mean, I'm not sure. We certainly haven't developed any strategies so far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Ms. Lichter. So my thoughts on that. So last time we met as a committee, you all had the recommendations for the policy. There was not a recommendation on changing that language. So understanding what you've mentioned, it still does have to go back to Policy Review Committee. I think that's certainly something to be discussed before that policy comes to the full board. So yes, duly noted. So, right, I'll certainly defer to you all as committee members here, and then board members overall, on how you want to address that going forward. But right now, that is how the policy reads, that development of strategies part, or assisting the superintendent in development of strategies.
Okay, thank you. And then the other point was the sentence that we added in the first bullet about the result has been. I'm wondering if that sentence in itself is not a measure of effectiveness, that we are ensuring that there is use of an equity lens in full board meetings. I mean, I think we have to do that more than just as a result of the training, but that should be something that's ongoing if we're doing this work correctly. But
Okay. So if I understand you correctly, do you want to break this out as its own bullet point?
If the other board members agree, and then I would just either say ensure or make certain that the use of an equity lens, and we'd have to just kind of wordsmith a little bit, but it can go either way. I just think that it's more than just a result of the training. It should be something that we are doing ongoing.
Okay.
But I'll take input from my colleagues.
This is Mrs. Harvey. So I think that this section is kind of twofold. It's like I think part of it is what have we done that demonstrates our effectiveness to date? And then what will we do to demonstrate our effectiveness moving forward? So I actually think it could be a separate, it could stay where it is because that is the outcome of the workshops. One of the outcomes is our increased awareness and usage of an equity lens, but it also could be a separate bullet in and of itself to say what you just said, Ms. Lichter.
Mhm. Yeah,
That
thank you,
makes
Ms.
sense.
Harvey. Yeah, I'm gonna kind of do a copy paste so you all can maybe see it as a standalone. And I'm gonna add some verbiage that I heard Ms. Harvey mention too. I'll say it. So I think the way I phrase it here kind of it flows with the first three bullets might, or more so what's happened to date, and then this bullet here, the fourth is ongoing, and then the fifth would be another ongoing measure, keeping in line with what Ms. Harvey mentioned. So, any other committee members have any thoughts on what Ms. Lichter has surfaced? Okay, so if no one's opposed, I'll remove it from here. Ms. Lichter, I'll come back to you since you made the initial comment. You okay if I remove it from here and then it still remains later in the list?
Well, yeah, well, Miss Zaleski was the one that added the comment. I wasn't sure if
Oh,
she
good
wanted
point.
it in there or just wanted it as part of our measures of effectiveness, which it is, so.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Mr. Lefke, what do you think?
I definitely don't have a preference, but I thought Ms. Lichter's point about it being a more direct action, not just as a result of the training, was a great point.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you. All right, so I'll remove it from here. So, okay. Okay, anyone else have any input on this document? Okay, all right, hearing none, I will stop sharing and turn it back over to Ms. Harvey. So thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Handy and team, and to board members for all of your consideration of our purpose and measures of effectiveness. Are there any objections from the committee to forwarding this to the full board for consideration?
This is
Hearing,
board
I'm sorry,
member.
go ahead.
This is board member from Pong. So I just had a question because I realized with the members and things, I was trying to remember what the format looked like from the other committees, but are we specifically naming our current chair and vice chair now, or are we just naming the members? I don't remember what was in other committees.
I know, and I believe that the leadership is identified in the member structure.
Okay, thank you.
So I will just reiterate, Are there any objections to forwarding this to the full board for consideration?
No objections.
Hearing none, our document will be forwarded to the full board. Thank you, everyone. The last item on the agenda is announcements. The next Equity Committee meeting with the Equity Council is Thursday, May 30th, 2024 at 5:30 p.m. The next Equity Committee meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 20th at 4 p.m. Is there any further business? Hearing none, the meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for all of your hard work. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good
Night.
evening.
Thank you. Good night.
Night.